afterwards. Uh, Welcome everybody to the first grad workshop for the summer. As we mentioned in the email, this is intended, it's as a supplement, just to get some individuals going in terms of, a lot of the things that we'll cover in a class that you through the program during your respective programs called career management. So this is just going to be a series of 3 meetings, optional meetings that we're going to kind of hit some of the big items that, frankly, you could have long discussions over it. And so today we're going to talk about resumes. Next week there will be one on LinkedIn, and then the following one is on networking. So again, it's intended to be supplemental. If you can't make all of them, that's okay. We're going to record all of them. We're going to upload it to our career services YouTube page, and we'll make sure that gets sent out. I know that some programs have Canvas pages already for incoming individuals. And so we'll try different areas as we can to make sure that you can access this recording afterwards. So we're going to jump into resumes today. I am a one-man show, so it's going to be hard for me to monitor the chat, but if you have questions, the easiest way you can do it, the easiest thing you can do is put things into the chat. I'll try to get to them when at the very least, we'll make sure to save a little bit of time at the very end to ask any pertinent questions that that you do have a hard stop at 10 o'clock with an employer meeting. Poorly planned, poorly timed on my part, but that'll happen. But yeah, so I want to start with, let me drop this in here real quick. In the chat, I have put a template that we use here as a resource for everybody. Don't have to use it. It's not mandatory by any stretch of the imagination, but it is there in case you want to have this as we're walking through some of the things today. You can kind of take a look at this, use it, and start updating yours with it. Completely entirely up to you. It's just a resource there to make your life a little bit easier if you're looking to reconstruct your resume. For any individuals watching this after the fact on the recording, if you would like a copy of this resume, feel free to email me. I'll put my email address at the end so that you can reach out to me. So we will get going here. I'm going to start with sharing my screen. Also trying to keep an eye on being able to let people in. I wonder if I can move this over here. Perfect. So I can keep doing that. Is everybody, well, actually, this is a better way to do it. Is anybody unable to see my screen right now? It should say, welcome to graduate student resume formatting. Any issues for anybody? Silence as a confirmation, which is totally fine. So perfect. So we will get going. Again, just to kind of get us started today, we're going to do a quick introduction into career services. That's where I work, just to kind of give you guys a sense of who we are. We'll be interacting with us plenty over the course of programs. So just want to kind of give you a quick intro there. We're going to talk a little bit media content, which is our resume development. I will stress as an overview. We will hit resumes hard and heavy during your career management class once your programs start. So this is to get you going in the right direction with some big picture stuff. So we're not going to really get too granular with this today. And then I'll update you on the upcoming webinars, and we'll go from there. So career services here. So I work in our career services. Hey, my name is Michael Nuttle. I know my name's on the screen. I didn't formally introduce myself. I am an assistant director here in the Lindner College of Business Career Services. That's my fancy title. My simple title is I'm a career coach. we are broken out by majors and programs. And so I am not necessarily going to be everybody's career coach during your time here at Lindner. I specifically advise our business analytics students, both at the graduate level as well as the undergraduate level. And so if you're in the MS BANA program, hey, nice to meet you. I'm your career coach. We are here to serve as resources, first and foremost. We serve those who are in students and programs, and we also engage with employers, build relationships, work to build connections, strong connections with employers to hopefully create some opportunities for our students to be able to hopefully find employment with some of these companies and things like that. I would say the majority of my job is spent doing career coaching on an individual basis. And so you can see the list of a lot of things that we cover in individual coaching appointments. Again, I always tell people I'm here to be a resource. You tell me what that means to you. But typically, we're going to cover things like resume, if you need to write a cover letter, for some folks, it's been a long time since they interviewed, and so they want to just be able to practice interviewing or doing mock interviews or just talking through the interviewing strategy and things like that. So we serve in that role. Again, we also teach the career management class that you will take during your time in your program, and we also are able to help you with different resources, be that Handshake, which we utilize here at the University of Cincinnati as our career site, our career posting site, I should say, for companies to post jobs there. Also can be a resource with LinkedIn and other job boards as well. We're here to help you. We help run and help you prepare for things like career fairs. We have companies that will host, info sessions, or they'll come to campus and set up tables and things like that. So we kind of help all of that there. You can expect to get fairly regular contact from your specific career coach during your time. Most of us will, at the very least, send out weekly newsletters throughout the semester, and this will plenty of content in terms of jobs available, upcoming events, things like. Every career coach is going to be a little bit different. For my MS BANA folks, oftentimes you'll get a lot of one-off email. Employer who will reach out to me and have a job, and I send those out. But you'd expect to get regular communication from your career coach during your time there. And if you want to kind of stay up on everything that we're doing, things we try to promote upcoming events or when folks are going to be on campus and everything. So we do have an Instagram page. One of our other career coaches, Bella Culia, runs that. She does a fantastic job, really tries to highlight student engagement, student opportunities. We're also on LinkedIn, so if you want to follow us and keep up on what's going on with the career services there. So we are going to jump into resumes. And a few big picture things I always like to start with when it comes to resumes is, number one, the resume will never get you a job. It is an important tool, but it will never be the sole reason that you get a job. And so ultimately, when we stop looking at it as a vehicle for getting us a job, I think it makes it a little bit easier. The goal for me is so much more about the really what you see on the screen here, the structure, the consistency, the simplicity. I formerly was a recruiter, a campus recruiter. I specifically recruited on college campuses for entry-level roles. And so I had 4 years of experience. Number one thing that I wanted to see in a resume, read it. I didn't necessarily care the format, as long as the format was clean. And because oftentimes the person picking up your resume initially for the first time is not going to say word for word for word. Oftentimes they may be looking for key things, or, a certain skill or something like that. And so for that matter, we want to be able to have an easily readable that allows somebody to be able to do a quick scan and then be able to find what it is that they're looking for quickly. And then you can go back and they can read it. So, putting some emphasis on the content is important, but at the very least, number one, be readable, got to be able to get through it pretty easily. So again, that's what we're going to talk a lot about today, really much more of, the structure and the formatting, more so than it is the the content. Again, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to have content conversations with your individual career coach. Is there a way to mute the pings when people join? That's a great question. Let me see if I can do that real quick while we're here. Does anybody know how to quickly do that before I just sit here and waste a bunch of time looking for that? Feel free to drop it in the chat if you do. All right. I don't think I do know how to do that. I apologize for that. So hopefully everybody's in at this point. And as soon as I say that. All right. There we go. I found the button. We should be good. All right. My apologies on that. So moving forward, like I said, formatting matters. Oftentimes, when you when you apply to a job, you're not the only person that's applied, and oftentimes a recruiter or whoever's doing the initial assessment of the resume most likely is going to do these in bulk. And so again, given a little bit of my experience, when I would have a large stack of resumes, oftentimes what would happen is that I would do an initial pass through. And basically I'm just looking for a reason, right? I have 70 applicants. I only got 20 interview spots. Initially what I'm doing is I'm doing a very quick pass through on that resume that first time through and looking to eliminate people. So if something's sloppy, if it looks like a mess, anything like that, I'm eliminating, because I am confident that I've got enough candidates here that, I'm not gonna have time. Like I don't want to spend my time looking through a really messy, sloppy resume or anything like that. So the formatting matters. Again, if anything, just to keep ourselves from getting eliminated quickly. So taking some time, using the template that we provided, or using something else that allows for a clean, readable resume is going to matter, or is going to be very, very helpful there. So making sure that you're hitting a lot of the main items also is really, really important. Thinking about what it is that an employer is looking for on the resume. What's the point of a resume? Well, it's showing your credentials, it's showing your value, it's showing what you bring to a potential employer. And so a lot of the main things that you're going to see is what we have on our list here, right? They want to know who you are first and foremost. So having a heading, we're going to get into detail on these, but most employers are going to care about your educational background. Not everybody will, but some or most still do, and so it's important to have on there your experience, be that work experience or be that academic experience. Is very important, as well as some of the things that you do outside of work, whether that's community engagement or other things that you're involved in, skills and certifications, and honors and activities. And this feels like a good time to tell you too that you can get 100 people's opinions you can ask 100 people for their opinion on a resume, and you're going to get about 100 different opinions. And that's always going to be the case. There's no one way to do a resume, right? A lot of what we're going to talk about today, what we're going to talk about in the career management class is what we've heard from employers that work the best for the most amount of people, right? But that does not mean this is the only one way to do a resume. So if you here's some of this today, or you're looking through the template and you're like, I don't like this, don't use it. It's completely fine. It's your resume. You should make it the way that you want to. Again, we provide this as a resource based off of the feedback that we get from our employer advisory board and other key employer partners, to try to put people in the best position to succeed. Again, there's a lot of do's and don'ts on resumes, and it's entirely up to the opinion of the reader. Some of the common don'ts that we do hear from folks are on this. A few of the big ones. Objective statements, I want to stress, is different than a summary statement. I think summary statements are very useful, especially for our graduate level students, who are making a pivot in their career. Maybe you were, working in one field and you're doing something drastically different. A summary statement is going to be a very important aspect on your resume. Objective statements are the type of statements that say, I'm looking for, an internship. I'm looking for an accounting job or something like that. People are going to know that because you're going to be applying to an accounting job. And so they don't really serve a very strong purpose. Honestly, they're just taking up a little bit of space. But a summary statement is something that I personally am strongly supportive of, and I know others are with that. Obviously, it's important to be honest. Obviously, it's important to put accurate information on your resume. So that we have that there. A few of the other things, listing personal interests, things like that. It's a great thought, right? Because I understand the rationale behind that. A lot of people are like, well, I want them to know me more than more about me than just my, my work history and stuff like that. It's like, that's great. Network with them, interview with them, make sure like that's your opportunity to do that. The resume is a snapshot. It's only supposed to capture a certain set of things, and the personal interests. There's not really a place for that on the resume. If you want them to know that about you, network with them, meet them, take them out to coffee, things like that. Again, personally, I don't think logos, colors, pictures, things like that add anything to the resume. That's not what it's intended for. You're not trying to stand out with your resume. You're trying to give somebody a quick, accurate picture of your credentials. And so adding color, adding pictures oftentimes can be detrimental because it takes away from people reading your resume, or it's too distracting, things like that. So try to avoid doing that. I have to point out the ones, you use a template, because obviously I shared a template with you today. So what we mean by that is more so I'm sure if you Google, resume templates, you're going to find some that it's like, oh, use this one for a Spotify application, things like that. And it's tailored to look a lot like, a Spotify interface or something like that. Those don't really serve a purpose. Oftentimes you have to pay for those. That's not going to matter because most of the time you're going to be submitting your resume, and it's going to be screened through artificial intelligence anyway. So what it looks like isn't necessarily going to matter. And then when it finally gets to the hands of somebody, that's when you do want it to be clean and readable. And oftentimes those templates are super messy. So again, we built our template based off the feedback that we got. It's nice, it's clean, it's straightforward. The other thing that I will encourage, because I see this a lot, especially at our graduate level, because oftentimes our graduate students have longer work history than say our undergraduate students, is the pressure to put everything, capture your entire work history in your resume. And what ends up happening is we overcrowd the resume. There is such a thing as too much on a resume, so be mindful of that. Again, we don't need to show the whole picture. We're showing a certain snippet of the picture there. So be mindful of that. Again, these are a few of those, and you'll be able to have much more individual conversations with your career coach in the future. Again, just some typical do's on the resume. 1 page generally is the rule of thumb. again, it's really going to depend on the reader of your resume. Often, I would say if you're 8 to 10 years into your career, you've worked a couple of different jobs, all pretty relevant. Yeah, you're probably going to have to go to a second page. That's okay. It's not detrimental. It's preferred that you can say no one page, again, keeping in mind the thought process of easy, readable, things like that. Somebody looks at 2 pages worth of a resume and they just be like, this is way too much, right? And I'm not gonna be able to read through all of this, so they don't read any of it. So trying our best to keep it to 1 page. Again, there are situations when having a second page definitely makes sense. Being mindful of the font size, right? Again, trying to resist the urge of cramming everything in there by getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I would argue that size 10 font is pushing it. Me personally, I wouldn't use any smaller than 10 and a half. 10 can be okay. Again, if you're looking at it and you feel like it's just, there's no room to breathe as you're looking at your resume because there's just so much content on there, probably a good time to cut some stuff out, bring that font size up a little bit. You can widen the margins often, on a Word document. The typical margins are an inch. That's way too big of a margin. You can widen it out a little bit to be able to spread your content out a little bit more, but you still want to make sure you maintain some margin there on the on your page. And so trying to make sure you keep at least half an inch there. Best to always use bullet points. It plays into that clean, readable factor. Making sure that you have consistency throughout the formatting, section by section and things like that. Whatever you do for one, it's best to do for all the other ones, again, just to keep a nice, consistent format here. Thank you, Aditya, for the how to get unmuted. I appreciate that. The question about type of font. I don't think the type of font is going to matter as much. Obviously, you want it to be pretty neutral. If it's something that's strong cursive or it's very quote unquote fancy font, that's probably not going to be best because it makes it harder to read. I don't think you need to use Times New Roman for by any stretch of the imagination either. So I know one of the ones that the NBA career coach he likes to use is like the Garmond one. He says it looks a little bit nicer, and it's not just your typical Times New Roman, but it's still very, very readable. So that's going to be the big thing with the font, right? Making sure that we keep it to something that is readable. But by all stretches of that, by all means, like please, you don't feel like you have to keep it to Times New Roman if you don't want to. I recognize that is a little bit boring. So thank you for that question. That's a good question. Kind of jumping into some of the typical sections that you're going to include on your resume. Number one is your heading, right? People need to know whose resume they're looking at. And so one of the big things is make sure that your name is bigger than everything else on there. At the very least, we want them to know whose resume they're looking at. So here's some examples of how you can structure those. Again, what you want to do is entirely up to you. The big thing is make sure that that name is nice, big, easy to find, easy to read, because that's going to be the first thing that they're going to look at. We have some examples here of information to include, including the address, your email address, your phone number. I definitely encourage putting at the very least your LinkedIn. If you're somebody in one of our more technical programs, like the BANA program, like the IS program, sometimes you have public profiles or portfolios on GitHub or Tableau or something like that. Include that in this section, right? So people can go and see some of the work that you've done. I think that's great. I don't personally think that you need to have your full address on your resume anymore. And in fact, I kind of discourage it for safety reasons, just in case it's publicly posted somewhere. I don't think it's a great idea to have your full home address on there. And any more employers say that doesn't matter as much anymore. They like to at least see, city and state, where you're located or where you intend to be located at. If you are not necessarily from Cincinnati, but you're here presently, but maybe you say you're from New York and you intend to go back to New York upon the completion of your program, or maybe that's where you're located at right now. and you can just put, the city and the state there. That's completely fine. Email address, all these examples are the UC emails. If I always encourage students to use that because in theory, they should be checking that email every day. If you don't want to use your UC email, if you want to make it a personal email, a Gmail, Yahoo, whatever it is, that's completely fine. Just make sure it is something that you check regularly, because most likely if an employer reaches out to you, that's where they're going to be reaching out to you at. So making sure that it's something like that, and making sure, of course, that it's professional, right? So something nice and easy, like your name, is completely fine. I always just take whatever my college email address was. It's, my last name plus like my first initial or my second initial or my middle initial, excuse me. That's been my Gmail since I went to college, because I was like, well, it worked for my college email address. I just made a Gmail account out of it. So that information there. The education section, again, kind of finding that formatting that works for you and going from there. With everybody being in graduate programs, the question always comes up, do I need to include my undergraduate information? And I think that is entirely up to you. If you are somebody who is making a completely different pivot in your career, right? Maybe you got a biology degree and now you're getting an MBA because you're trying to move more into the business world. I don't think, having your biology undergraduate degree on there really brings that much more value to it. If you're in a graduate program, like all of you are, it's already assumed that you have some sort of undergraduate degree. So people aren't going to think that you don't have one just because it's not on your resume. So it's entirely up to you. Again, I think about the way I always look at it is, does it provide a lot of value? In some cases it will, in some cases it won't. And that's entirely up to you. And again, a great conversation to have with your career coach. In the education section, really the big things you're going to try to hit, right, is the program that you're in, naming the college. We're very, very big here in the Lindner College of Business that, you're putting Carl H. Lindner College of Business on there, because the official title of the school, the extra prestige that comes with that. Lindner is always tricky. So making sure that you get both the ends in there. The location on there, you can do, you don't have to, again, it's helpful. Making sure that you list what the program is that you're doing. And then, as you can see, like in this top example here, while you're in the program, giving people an idea of when you're expected to be completed with your degree. Most of the programs here are 1 year. So for a lot of folks, it'd be, expected, April 2023 or August 2023, something like that. Again, what that does is it signals to employers, that your anticipated completion of the program. If it changes, that's okay. Communicate that if you're engaging with an employer at the time. The question of GPA always gets brought up. Does it matter? Again, it's really going to depend on the reader. In my opinion, the common thought is that if your resume isn't on your GPA, or if your GPA isn't on your resume, excuse me, that it's not good, and what is not good below a 3.0 seems to be the general consensus. So if you're somebody who has a 4.0 in your program, you're almost doing yourself a disservice by not having it on there. So you might as well just go ahead and put it on there, include it on the same line as your program or wherever, so that you're not even using extra space for it. I think it's a good thing to include when you're first starting out your program. So when you're in the fall semester for everybody, you obviously do not have a GPA. So what do you do then? You can just put a quick note, maybe along the same spot here where it says, Masters of Science Information Systems, and you can say currently in first semester, right? And something super quick like that. That'll help you there. So other things that you can include in there are, relevant coursework. Again, I think that this is helpful if you're somebody who's making a really big pivot change in your career and you don't necessarily have relevant work experience. And so giving some ideas of, the type of work that you're doing. As you see here in the second example with the relevant coursework, again, entirely up to you. That's an optional thing there. At the very least, though, you want the college, or you want the university and the college, and you want the program, and when you're expected to graduate, your GPA, your coursework, things like that. That's all going to be optional. Again, experiences where you can spend a lot of time and really dig in deep. Again, that's a better conversation to be had at an individual level, which you all will be able to have an opportunity. But again, the big things here are making sure that the consistency of the formatting is there throughout the resume, right? So what you do for the first one, you want to do for the other ones. The caveat to that is the number of bullet points. I think sometimes we take that so far that we're like, I have 4 bullet points for my first experience. I have to have 4 bullet points for all the other ones. I don't think that's the case at all. I mean more so in the sense of how you structure it, right? And having the company name, the location, what your position title is, and the range, the timeline for when you were there. If you build it out like this example here on your first work experience, that's what I'm expecting it to look like. A lot of people say that if you're going to put it on there, you need to at least have some bullet points. I make the argument that some people want to include things on their resume just to show the full, at the very least, show the full timeline of the work experience. And if that's the case, putting at least 2 bullet points can really fill up your resume really, really quickly. And so I personally am perfectly okay if somebody only shows, this information here at the top, in this example, the United States Playing Card Company, Cincinnati, Ohio, brand assistant, and then the timeline. I'm perfectly okay if that's all you show and you don't have any bullet points under that. Again, somebody may tell you differently. That's just me. The big things to keep in mind too is avoid just trying to describing what it was, the company or the position itself or something like that. This is really about trying to focus in on hitting skills, right? My big thing is always transferable skills, and that's a very subjective word because it's intended to be, and it's really going to depend on the jobs that you're applying to. So sometimes those transferable skills are technical skills. Sometimes those transferable skills are those soft skills, but really focusing in on that versus just kind of saying a broad overview of what something is. And so showing the examples here, right, we're trying to hit on some of the things that we did, but also showcasing a skill set. And so, not just focusing on the what you did, but the why, the how you did it, right? If you use certain programming language, or if, there's a technical technique that you utilize to do something in a work experience, making sure that we're intentional in naming that. The big thing is starting everything with, a strong action verb. In our career service guide, which you'll be able to get access to, we have like a list of like 300 action verbs that you can use on your resume. This isn't a paper, right? The proper, sentence structure isn't entirely important, and so just starting with an action verb is helpful. Quantifying when you can really helps build context overall and really shows a clearer picture for the person reading the resume. For example, if I say, I made a lot of sandwiches at my job at Subway. What is a lot, right? Well, ultimately, you're at the mercy of whatever the person reading your resume thinks a lot is. Maybe they think that's 20, maybe they think that's 100. That's a big difference. When you can quantify and build that. So I made 25 sandwiches an hour in my job at Subway. Quantify when we can. If you can't exactly quantify and you can reasonably estimate, that's completely fine. Avoid big, broad, like, a million of this, or 100,000 of that, right? Those often seem like they're just completely inflated there. So trying to quantify as much as you can when you can. Not every line has to have something quantified, but really trying to put the effort in there to do that. A couple of other sections, the work experience and also the academic projects. And again, there'll be a lot of conversations about the academic projects. I do think they're important and relevant, especially for those changing careers. That's going to be the bulk of your resume. A couple of the other things that you're going to include in there are your skills and certifications. If you're in a technical major, again, IS, BANA, if you're doing one of the data analytics or data science grad certificates, something like that, you have to have a skill section on here. Because again, ultimately, there's always going to be a technical element of your job. And people, that reader of your resume is going to be looking, if they're trying to hire somebody with experience in R, they're going to be looking to see, do you have R on your resume? And so a skills section really allows you to just have a nice, clean list of those technical skills that you possess. Again, I stress technical skills. This isn't soft skills. This isn't good communicator, timely, great team player, things like that. These are your technical skills that you have. Any certifications that you have, be that through LinkedIn, Google, if you get digital badges, anything like that. Again, from a technical standpoint, include that in there. Again, what we're doing there is we're showing people the toolkit that we possess. And frankly, the bigger it is, right, you're going to hit on a lot of the key things that any employer is going to be looking for. And even if not everything is 100% relevant to that job, I make the argument that you can still send the signal that it's like, even if I don't have every single technical skill that you're looking for, I'm able to learn. I'm able to learn and I'm able to apply. So skill set, the technical skills, certifications, frankly, I think everybody should have them on the resume, but at the very least, our technical majors, you need to have them on there. Other things that you can include, activities, community engagement, things like that. Whatever you want to call it is entirely up to you. Sometimes I'll see people that call it, like community and campus engagement, or community engagement and leadership opportunities. Whatever that is, there's a place for it on your resume. Again, this isn't going to be your whole resume. It's going to be an opportunity to just kind of show a fuller picture of who you are without just straight up listing what you're interested in. And so this can be strategic. If there's a charity that you're heavily involved in, that you work with regularly and it means a lot to you, you can include that in that section. This is the place that you can put things like if you've been in case competitions or other things like that again allow you to show more of you than just, hey, here's my work experience and here's my technical skill set and here's my educational background. So some other things in terms of with the resume, when you are sending your resume to somebody, it's always best to send it in a PDF, right? Because PDFs, they are editable. We all know that they are editable, but it's a little bit more work to do that. And so we want to make sure too, when you send something in a PDF, what you see is what they're going to get, right? Especially when you're uploading this online in applicant tracking software. There were so many times when I was a recruiter and somebody would upload a Word doc into our applicant. So when they applied, they went into our applicant tracking software, and it was definitely a mess. It definitely changed the formatting a bit. The PDF that's it. So completely fine to keep a Word version of your resume. In fact, you should, right? Because it's going to change over time. A resume is a living, breathing document, right? It's going to change. So it's good to kind of have that already in a Word document. But if you're going to be sending it to an employer, if you're going to be emailing it or applying online or sending it to your career coach to put in a resume book or something like that, please make sure it's in a PDF. Make the file names easy. You want somebody, right? It's being sent digitally. So the first thing they're going to see is that file name, and we want to make it as easy as possible. If they're looking for a resume, if they're looking for something, we want to make sure that they are able to define that, especially in a sea of a bunch of different documents. And so make that file name nice and simple. Last name _ first name _ resume. Doesn't need to say, Nuttle _ Michael _ resume _ July _ 2022. It's just too convoluted. It's too much. Just last name, first name, resume. That's all it needs to be. And if you're worried about how it's going to look when you upload it, there are some online resources where you can upload a PDF and see, what it is that it looks like. So always a good idea to double check that the first time through, just to make sure that everything's going to come out the way that you're wanting it to. So before I open up the questions, as I mentioned, for anybody watching this after the fact, if you want that template that I shared in the chat, for anybody that came in late, there's a template in the chat for a resume that you can access. If you're not joining us live and you would like that, that's my email address, michael.nuttle@uc.edu, nice and easy. That you can shoot me an email and I'll send that template over to you. And just to put on everybody's radar, the next workshop that we're going to be doing again is going to be going over LinkedIn with Brian Finelli, our NBA career coach. That's going to be next week on Tuesday, July 12th. That'll be 12 o'clock Eastern, for Eastern. So depending on where you're taking this in at, I'll need you to adjust accordingly there. So can I share the template again? I certainly can. And so from there, I will take questions for the next couple of minutes. So let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. If there are any questions from anybody other than the template, and let me get that uploaded here real quick. There you go. There's the template there. And then Ken, you said, can you give any suggestions on the flow of the resume for non-traditional students going back to school after significant work experience in a different field, education up front? That's a really good question, Ken. Thank you for asking that. I do think that while you're in a program, if you are, let me put it this way, if you are full-time in a program, this is all that you're doing, I do think having the education section at the top is helpful. Just because again, that's gonna show people you're in that program. That's where you're at right now. If you're doing that program part-time, I think then you can make the argument that it's down at the bottom. I think once you've completed the program, it can go back down to the bottom. But if you're actively in the program, I think it needs to be up at the top. Yes, I can. Sorry, I just saw the question about sharing the resume. I want to make sure anybody who can get that before they go. Let me drop that also in the chat real quick. And again, anybody can get that. But while the where did I download that to? Yes, I'm going to get that PowerPoint, but let me finish answering this question real quick. The education, yeah, it should be at the top while you're in the program. If you're part-time, I think again, it's gonna really kind of depend on, did you, are you making a pivot change, or are you making a drastic change in your career? And if so, I think then that's when you want to probably have that at the top. So at the very least, if your entire resume is a bunch of engineering experience, and now you're applying to accounting jobs, someone's going to be like, why is this engineering person, applying? That's where we want to make sure we have that accounting experience at the very least. So just drop that in. Okay. In case of experience section, our projects play more role or day-to-day roles and responsibilities performed? That's a really good question. I think the big thing on the content again is what is going to provide the most value for the job that you're applying to. So if that's the day-to-day type of things, right? A lot of things that you do repetitively, a lot of things that are pretty typical for you to do. I think that's when you're going to include that. If it's more project based, if it's more bigger type of items, then that's fine. I think the big thing is, again, it's focusing a lot more on the transferable skill, right? Because ultimately, if you're going to be spending your whole time talking about, a coding language, and the job you're applying for has you doing no coding at all, that's not really going to provide a ton of value because it's not something you're going to be doing. So that's where it's trying to focus in on the transferable skills much more but much more if, it's much more about the transferable skills. So that's where it's kind of focusing more on, you know, not just what you were doing, but how you did it, why you did it that way, things like that. So let me see some of those other questions. Not sure if I'm only unable to open the above file or if it's the same for everyone. Has anybody else tried to open up the template? And can anybody else open that? Where's the file? I can't see it. Yeah, it works. It's in the chat. If you look in the chat, I'm gonna try to drop it again. So let me see if I can drop this in here real quick. It works now. Oh, okay, perfect. Perfect. Awesome. Good teamwork, everybody. Thank you so much. Let me grab this file also real quick, the PowerPoint, so everybody has that here. Any other questions about the one? Okay, somebody mentioned handshake portal. That is well beyond me. Handshake, unfortunately, I can take a look at that. We have a person in our department who handles those things. So if you're having an issue, definitely feel free to reach out to your career coach. Most likely they're not going to be able to fix it, but they can at the very least try to direct it to somebody to get that handled a little bit more quickly there. Let me try again to get these slides here real quick. There we go. Those in here so that everybody is able to access this. Any other questions for anybody else? How do we connect with our career specific with your career coach? You should, again, every program is going to be a little bit different. I know that I've already done an introductory program with an introductory meeting with our VANA folks. If you are in another one, let me share this neat little site here. This is our current team that we have here. This is our team, so you can, nope, sent that to just Jafar, my apologies. This is to everybody. This is where you can find who your specific career coach is. Again, most people it'll mention if they're the masters, the graduate level career coach as well, oftentimes. So for instance, Weston Atchison, he does econ, and he does that at the undergraduate and the graduate level there. So you can find your career coach there. You need to download the slides and send those slides right here. Let me see if that will work. Slides are in there for everybody. Excellent. Did I miss any questions here? Was everybody able to? Template in here one more time. And if you're not able to get the template from this, please feel free to email me, michael.nuttle@uc.edu. And I can send you an email with that. There's the template there. Any other questions as it relates to the resume, career services, anything like that? Otherwise, we will be good to go. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining today. Again, the next program, the next workshop is going to be next week on Tuesday at 12 Eastern, covering LinkedIn with Brian Finelli. Again, if you can't make it, totally fine. It's going to be uploaded. We'll be sending out some communication with where you can access the stuff afterwards. If you didn't get anything today, any of the files that I dropped in there, shoot me an email. Otherwise, looking forward to getting a little bit closer to everybody being here and getting their program started in August. So take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Stay healthy, stay safe. Thanks for joining.